What's happening? Anthony here, coming through with another video. And in this video, we are going to talk about light output. Now, a video that I did a couple of weeks ago, we dived into the amount of flash power needed to fill a large softbox. And the video today is going to go with that video. We're going to talk light output, and specifically light output amongst the entire modifier. So in the case of an Octabox, from corner to corner. In the case of a softbox, from corner to corner. And an Octabox, the entire surface of that. And what we want to dive into and see is the level of light that we're getting from the entire surface of the modifier. Now, you may question, why does that matter? If we're shooting a flash into it and we're getting light inside of the whole modifier, why does the light output matter? And that would be a great question. And I think in some cases, maybe it doesn't. But as you dive more into flash and you really start to craft that light and you get very specific to where you want that light to be, this plays a really big factor. Let's take, for example, a strip box, okay? So generally when you're using a strip box, you're using it for a hair light or rim light. Let me place my hands in the right spot to match what I'm saying. But sometimes you may wanna, for example, use it as a key light. And so you would generally use a big strip box like this, so that way you could light your subject from head to toe. This here is a 5 foot by 1 foot strip box. And so you would want to light your subject from head to toe. So where would the problem be? Why would you need to be worried about light output? Well, if you think about a strip box, and if you have it to where it's going to light the entire subject, where is the center of that strip box? The center of that strip box falls at the center of your subject, so at the waist area of your subject. That could be a problem if you're getting more light coming out the center of the strip box than you are out of the top or the bottom. You're going to have a hot spot in the center, and then that light is going to gradually fall off on the face and towards the feet. And so you'll start to get that uplight effect where you have more exposure in this area than you do on the face. And that could be very unpleasing. So it's important to know, for the specific modifier that you're using, what's the level of output? Is it relatively even amongst the whole strip box or softbox or Octabox? Or do you have a spot where it's hotter in the center? A lot of this will depend on a few different things. Number one, the modifier itself. All modifiers are not created equal. Some are built better than others. Some have silver material inside, some have white material, some have inner baffles, some have plates. There's a lot of different variations on modifiers that can impact how the light is spread inside of that modifier. And then of course the size itself plays a factor as well. So what this video is not meant to be is an all-inclusive or a kind of like a this is how all softbox will function type thing. It's not that at all. This video is really meant to just dive into it, and the hope is that you will then take your modifiers and do this same thing, so that for what you have in your studio or at your home, you know exactly how that light output is with that specific modifier. So today I'm going to use my AD200 simply because these are bigger modifiers and I need the ability to really be able to fill these. If I were to try to use a speed light on a 5 foot strip box or this 4 foot Octabox, it would be a little challenging, and for the sake of the video, I don't feel that that's necessary. But I'm using a few different types. We have a strip box. We've got the 4 foot deep parabolic. We have a 2 foot by 3 foot softbox. And then we have a 32 inch or 36 inch Octabox. Now, these two modifiers here are indirect modifiers. And what that means is the light source faces into the modifier and then it bounces off and it comes back out. Okay. The deep parabolic, there's a plate inside of there. So the flash, although it fires out of the modifier, it does hit that plate, so that helps spread it around. And in the strip box, there is an inner baffle, but there's no plate. So the likelihood of there being a hotter spot in the center of this is relatively high. Okay, so there's a plethora of different modifiers here. And so we're simply going to go through and we're going to meter them with a light meter, and we're going to see what we get. This video is not meant to say that the outcome and the results that I get When I meter these modifiers, it's going to be the same readings and output that you get for your modifiers. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that it is important to be cognizant and to be aware of the output that you get in your modifiers so that you can strategically place them when you are doing your photo sessions. That is the point. So with all that being said, let's get these set up one at a time and let's get to metering. Okay, so we are going to start with the 48-inch deep parabolic first. Now, one thing to note about Octaboxes or round modifiers is that you will tend to have an more even spread in this type of modifier when you're using a bare bulb, because that light can evenly disperse everywhere. And when you consider the center of the modifier, no matter what edge you go to, it's the same distance. So the light is traveling the same distance away from the center or that light source throughout the whole modifier. So you do tend to have a more even light output on a circular type of modifier than you would a rectangle or a strip box, but let's measure anyway. Okay, so we are going to start. So just for the sake of metering, I have the setting set at 200th of a second for the shutter, ISO at 100. And so what we're looking at is the aperture value and how consistent that stays across the surface of the softbox. Okay, so we'll start in the center. Okay, so we're getting F5. So let's come over here. F5.6, F5.6, 4.5, 5.6, 5.6, 5.6, 5.6. So for the most part, no cause of concern. F5 or F5.6, for the most part, this is relatively even. So you wouldn't have to worry too much about where you place this in terms of hot spots being on your subject. So if I was to be standing in front of this, if it was, if it's hitting here, I don't have to worry about it being more hot right here than it would be on my face. So it would be okay. So let's move to the strip box and see how that pans out. Okay, so we got the strip box in. You can't see the top. The top is just a little bit out of frame, but rest assured, I will meter it correctly. Okay, so let's just jump right in. So let's see where we are in the center. Okay, so we're starting with F16. So let's go up to the top. Okay, so at the top, we're at F5. And at the bottom, we're at F5. So let's kind of move somewhere in between. So we're at F8 in between and F8 in between, okay? So we started at F16, then we went to F8. So we dropped 2 stops. And then we went to F5, so almost 2 stops. From the center, we lose almost 4 stops of light towards the top and the bottom of this strip box, okay? So if you were metering this light and you metered it at F16 and you set your camera settings to match this F16, the problem with that, and this is a little high, this would be a little lower if I was doing this on me, but let's say this was down and it was equal, okay? If the light is the hottest right here and it's waist level, a large concentration of that light is going to be right here at my waist. And on my face, it's going to be significantly underexposed, because by the time we get to the top, we're 4 stops different than we are in the center. And so that is a big reason why people don't like to use strip boxes for key lights. Because of that, inconsistency is not the right word. It's just a matter of the main light source is right here in the center, okay? And so even though that light is filling the softbox, there's a lot more distance for it to travel to get here and to get here. Now, I will say that if this softbox had the plate the same way that the deep parabolic has, that would help a lot. Okay, so a part of this variance in light output is due to the fact that that plate isn't there. So there's really nothing to help disperse the light and to fill this strip box better. Okay, so if you have like one of the glow strip boxes or some other brand that has that deflector plate inside, you'll likely get different readings. And although it may still be off, it would probably be a little bit more balanced than what this one is. We're going to move to the softbox now, the 2 foot by 3 foot softbox. Okay, so now we have the 2 foot by 3 foot softbox. Keep in mind, this is an indirect modifier. So what that means is the flash is inside and it's facing into the modifier. Okay, so again, same settings. You know the drill by this point. Let's go right. Okay, so we're getting F5. Let's come up here, F5, 6, F7, F11, F12.7, 11, 7, 6.3, F8, F10. Okay, so what do you see with this modifier? Okay, for one, the output is all over the place. Okay, one thing to note, or the first thing to note, this is a cheap softbox. So this is not a very well designed. I've had this softbox since I started photography or shortly thereafter. So the design of it is not great. You have this light that is facing into the modifier, and then it's just kind of bouncing all over the place. Now, because this is a cheaper modifier, the silver material inside is not of great quality. And you may have never thought about that when you're getting modifiers, when you think about like the material inside, whether it's silver or white, the quality of it, and if it makes a difference. It does. Very well designed light modifiers have very well designed inner lining that helps disperse that light more evenly. So what we can see with this one is the light simply isn't being dispersed evenly. So we have meter readings all over the place with this particular modifier. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the last one, which is the 32-inch Octabox, which is also an indirect modifier, the same as this one. Okay, and let's round this out with the 32-inch, I believe it's a 32-inch, either a 32-inch or 36-inch Octabox, and this is a newer, never know how to say that. I don't really use this modifier too often either, but I wanted to test it out. So again, same settings. Okay, so we're getting 5, 6 in the center, 7, 5, 6, hot on that side, F11, F9. So from the center of 5, 6 to 11, we're 2 stops hotter over there. So over here, we're F9, just random spots, see what we get. So again, this is very similar to the 2 foot by 3 foot softbox. And a lot of that comes from the fact that for starters, there's really only one level of diffusion. You are getting somewhat of diffused light by it pointing into the modifier and bouncing off. But in the same with the softbox, this is not necessarily what I would consider to be a high quality light modifier. So that inner material is also likely not the best. It probably wasn't designed very well. It was designed for cost more than anything. And so when you have the light that's just going in, that light is just kind of bouncing in a very unorganized, random way. And so you do get hot spots. And a big part of that will depend on how straight the light is, okay? If I have this light pointed a little bit more towards the right, well, guess what? When the light fires that way, angle of incidence is the angle of reflection, If it's more pointed towards the right side, then yeah, I'm gonna have more of a hotter spot over here, and I'll have not as hot of a spot over here. So the direction of how you have it in there plays a factor. So I do want to point out again, or I don't know if I pointed it out earlier or not, I was using the AD200, but I was using the Fresnel head. So I do think you would get somewhat of different results if you were using a bare bulb, because it would fill that modifier differently. Okay, so I am very aware of that. I'm going to emphasize again, the point of this video wasn't to show that these are the results that you would get if you did the same thing. This certainly wasn't scientific. If I wanted it to be scientific, I would have to do measurements and I would have to make sure everything was precisely the same distance apart and everything. It wasn't meant for that. The video really is just meant to get your brain thinking on light output and how modifiers are filled with light, and just to encourage you to do the same thing with your modifiers so that you simply know. Okay, you don't really have to do anything with it. It just helps you know, so when you're placing that modifier, you understand where the hot spots may be so that you can feather that or position it, angle it in a way that plays to the strengths and weaknesses of the light output of your particular modifier. That is the only point of this video. It wasn't to cover everything, okay? So please, there's no point in commenting on any of that stuff, because I'm not trying to say that this is the results that everyone will get when they do this. It really is just to get the discussion and the thoughts going in your mind. So I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions on this at all, or any comments or whatever, leave those down below. I try to respond to all the comments. And if there's anything in particular that you want to see in the future, a video, drop that down below as well. So until next time, as always, continue to stay safe, continue to stay healthy. Hopefully you are getting back to work and things are beginning to get back to the new normal. So until the next one, take care.